Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled,
My wife's best friend turned her against me. Even now, the story is painful to relive, but I need to get it off my chest to try and make sense of how my life fell apart so quickly. My name is Justin. I was happily married to my wife Maya for 5 years. We met in college, fell madly in love, and built a life together. Maya was smart, funny, beautiful, everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I truly believed we were solid. That all changed when Phoebe came into the picture. Phoebe was Maya's childhood best friend. They'd grown up together but drifted apart after high school when Phoebe moved across the country for work. I'd heard stories about her over the years, seen her pop up occasionally on Maya's social media, but never really met her in person. That changed last summer when Phoebe moved back to town after a bad breakup. Maya was thrilled to reconnect with her old friend. At first, I was happy for her too. Maya didn't have a ton of close friends in the area, so I figured having Phoebe around would be good for her. Boy, was I wrong. The first time I met Phoebe, alarm bells immediately started going off in my head. She was attractive in a showy way, bleached blonde hair, lots of makeup, clothes that left little to the imagination, but it wasn't her looks that bothered me. It was the way she looked at me, like a predator sizing up its prey. "So you're the famous Justin," she purred, giving me a once-over. "Maya's told me so much about you." I tried to be polite. "Nice to finally meet you, Phoebe. I've heard a lot about you too." She smirked. "Oh, I'm sure you have, but I bet Maya left out all the really juicy stories from our wild days." I laughed uncomfortably, not sure how to respond. Maya quickly changed the subject, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling Phoebe gave me. Over the next few weeks, Phoebe became a constant presence in our lives. She and Maya were practically joined at the hip, going out for drinks, having girls' nights, texting constantly. At first, I tried to be supportive. I knew Maya had missed having a close girlfriend to confide in. But things started to change. Maya began coming home later and later from her outings with Phoebe. She was distracted and distant when we were together. Our intimate life, which always has been great, dwindled to almost nothing. When I tried to talk to her about it, she got defensive. "You're being paranoid," she snapped. "Phoebe's my best friend. Can't I have a social life outside of you?" I backed off, not wanting to seem controlling, but the pit in my stomach grew. Things came to a head about 2 months after Phoebe arrived. I came home early from work one day to find Maya and Phoebe drinking wine in our living room, sitting unusually close on the couch, heads bent together conspiratorially. They jumped apart when I walked in. "Justin," Maya said, her voice overly bright. "You're home early." "Yeah, slow day at the office," I replied, studying their flushed faces. "What are you two up to?" "Oh, just girl talk," Phoebe said with a dismissive wave. "Nothing that would interest you." I tried to join their conversation, but it was clear I wasn't welcome. They kept exchanging significant looks and giggling at inside jokes. I felt like a third wheel in my own home. Finally, I'd had enough. "Maya, can I talk to you for a minute? In private?" She rolled her eyes but followed me to the kitchen. "What is it, Justin?" "We're in the middle of something." "That's kind of what I wanted to talk about," I said carefully. "I feel like things have been off between us lately. Ever since Phoebe came back, I barely see you anymore. And when I do, you seem distracted. Is everything okay?" Maya's face hardened. "Everything's fine. You're being ridiculous. Phoebe's my friend." "What, am I not allowed to have friends now?" "Of course you are," I backpedaled. "I just miss you, that's all. Maybe we could plan a date night this weekend. Just the two of us?" She sighed. "I can't. Phoebe and I already have plans." "Can't you reschedule?" I pleaded. "We haven't had one night out together in weeks." "Don't be so clingy," Maya snapped. "I'm not going to drop everything just because you're feeling insecure." She stormed back to the living room, leaving me stunned. In 5 years of marriage, I'd never heard her speak to me that way. Things only got worse from there. Maya started spending more and more time at Phoebe's apartment. When she was home, she was constantly on her phone, smiling at texts. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd get defensive and accuse me of spying on her. I tried everything I could think of to reconnect with my wife. I planned romantic dinners, bought her thoughtful gifts, suggested couples counseling. Nothing worked. It was like there was a wall between us that I couldn't break through. One night, about 3 months after Phoebe arrived, I woke up to find Maya's side of the bed empty. It was 2 a.m. I checked my phone and saw a text from her saying, "Staying at Phoebe's tonight, don't wait up." That was the last straw. I knew in my gut something was very wrong. The next day, I did something I'm not proud of. I waited until Maya was in the shower, and then I checked her phone. What I found made my blood run cold. There were hundreds of texts between her and Phoebe, flirtatious messages, explicit photos, plans to meet up for a secret rendezvous. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. I felt like I was going to be sick. My wife was having an affair with their female best friend. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? I confronted Maya as soon as she got out of the shower. I know about you and Phoebe, I said, my voice shaking. She froze, towel clutched to her chest. What are you talking about? I saw your text. How long has this been going on? How could you do this to me? Maya's face crumpled. I'm so sorry, Justin. I never meant for this to happen. Phoebe and we've always had a connection. When she came back, those old feelings resurfaced. I tried to fight it, but what? I demanded. You decided to throw away our marriage instead? Why didn't you talk to me? We could have worked through this. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I was confused, scared. Phoebe convinced me that what we had was special, that you could never understand. She said if I really loved her, I'd leave you. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. And do you love her? Maya wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't know, maybe. Everything's so messed up. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. I think you need to leave. Go stay with Phoebe or your parents. I need time to process this. Justin, please, she begged. Can't we talk about this? There's nothing to talk about, I said coldly. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. Maya packed a bag and left. I spent the next 3 days in a daze, alternating between crushing grief and white-hot anger. How could the woman I loved betray me like this? How had I not seen it coming? I also couldn't stop thinking about Phoebe's role in all of this. From the beginning, she'd set out to drive a wedge between Maya and me. She'd manipulated my wife, preyed on her insecurities, all to satisfy her own selfish desires. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. After a week of agonizing, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Phoebe destroy my marriage without a fight. I called Maya and asked her to meet me at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. When we walked in, my heart clenched. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair a mess. Part of me wanted to take her in my arms and tell her everything would be okay, that I steeled myself. I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. Thanks for coming, I said stiffly as she sat down. Of course, she replied, fidgeting nervously with her coffee cup. Justin, I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you terribly. If there's anything I can do to make it right. I held a hand up to stop her. I didn't ask you here for apologies. I want to know if you're willing to try and save our marriage. Hope flared in her eyes. You mean that? You'd be willing to forgive me? I didn't say that, I cautioned. What you did was a massive betrayal of trust. It's going to take a lot of work to rebuild what we had, if that's even possible. But I'm willing to try, on one condition. Anything. Anything, she said eagerly. You cut Phoebe out of your life, completely. No contact whatsoever. Maya's face fell. Justin, that's not fair. Phoebe's my oldest friend. I can't just... She's not your friend, I interrupted. She took advantage of you when you were vulnerable. She deliberately set out to destroy our marriage. As long as she's in your life, we have no chance of working things out. You don't understand, Maya protested. It's complicated. It's not complicated, I said firmly. You have your marriage or you can have Phoebe. You can't have both. The choice is yours. Maya stared at me for a long moment, conflict clear on her face. Finally, she nodded. Okay, you're right. I'll end things with Phoebe. Our marriage is more important. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Thank you. That's a start. I think we should also look into couples counseling. We have a lot to work through. She agreed readily. We spent the next hour talking, really talking, for the first time in months. It was painful and raw, but also cathartic. By the time we left the coffee shop, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The hope was short-lived. The next day, I got a call from Maya. She was hysterical, barely coherent. From what I could piece together, she'd gone to Phoebe's apartment to break things off in person. She went crazy, Justin, Maya sobbed. She started screaming at me, saying I was betraying her, that I'd let her on. Then she threatened to post our private photos online if I let her. What am I going to do? I saw red. This was a new low, even for Phoebe. Don't worry, I assured Maya. I'll take care of it. I hung up and immediately called a lawyer. I explained the situation and asked what our options were. Well, threatening to distribute private photos without consent is definitely illegal, he said. It falls under revenge porn laws. We could potentially get a restraining order against Phoebe and threaten legal action if she follows through on her threats. Do it, I said grimly. Whatever it takes to protect Maya. He worked quickly. Within 24 hours, we had filed for a temporary restraining order. The process was more complex than I'd anticipated. We had to provide detailed documentation of Phoebe's threats and harassment, including screenshots of messages and a sworn statement from Maya about the confrontation at Phoebe's apartment. While we waited for the court to process our request, I also hired a private investigator to gather more evidence of Phoebe's manipulative behavior. The PI interviewed mutual friends and acquaintances, uncovering a pattern of Phoebe inserting herself into relationships and causing drama. 3 days after filing, we had our first court appearance for the temporary restraining order. It was a surreal experience walking into the courthouse, Maya trembling beside me. Phoebe was there too, looking smug and confident. She clearly didn't think we had a case. The judge listened patiently as our lawyer presented the evidence, the threatening texts, Maya's testimony about Phoebe's erratic behavior, and statements from friends corroborating Phoebe's history of manipulation. Phoebe's lawyer tried to paint it as simple falling out between friends, but the judge wasn't buying it. To our relief, the temporary restraining order was granted. Phoebe was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Maya and have no contact whatsoever for the next 30 days until we could have a full hearing for a permanent order. When Phoebe was served with the restraining order, she went ballistic. She started calling and texting Maya nonstop from different numbers, alternating between tearful pleas and vicious threats. Maya was a wreck, jumping every time her phone buzzed. We documented every violation of the order, building our case for the permanent hearing. Our lawyer advised us to press criminal charges for harassment and attempted revenge porn as well. It was a lot to deal with, but I was determined to see this through. I wasn't going to let Phoebe terrorize us any longer. The weeks leading up to the full hearing were intense. We had multiple meetings with our lawyer, gathering and organizing evidence. The private investigator continued digging, uncovering more dirt on Phoebe, including similar incidents with past relationships where she tried to come in between other couples. Meanwhile, Maya and I, we were trying to rebuild our relationship amidst all this chaos. We started couples counseling, which was painful but necessary. Slowly, tentatively, we began to reconnect. The shared trauma of dealing with Phoebe's threats had brought us closer in some ways, though there was still a long road ahead to fully regain trust. When the court date came, the hearing was grueling. It lasted nearly 6 hours. Our lawyer methodically laid out the evidence, hundreds of harassing messages, testimony from the private investigator about Phoebe's patterns of behavior, statements from other people she tormented in the past. Phoebe's lawyer tried to paint her as the victim, claiming Maya had led her on and that I was just a jealous, controlling husband. But their arguments fell apart under cross-examination. Phoebe's cool facade cracked as she was confronted with screenshot after screenshot of her own threatening messages. Throughout the hearing, I couldn't help but notice how small and pathetic Phoebe looked on the witness stand. Her carefully crafted image was crumbling, revealing the insecure, spiteful person underneath. Part of me almost felt sorry for her. After what felt like an eternity, the judge finally rendered her decision. Not only was the permanent restraining order granted, but she also recommended that the district attorney pursue criminal charges against Phoebe for harassment and attempted revenge porn. Phoebe was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from both Maya and me, with no contact whatsoever for 3 years. She was also required to undergo mandatory counseling and pay a substantial fine to cover our legal fees and the cost of the private investigator. As the judge read out the ruling, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Phoebe's face contorted with rage. She started screaming obscenities, having to be physically restrained by her lawyer and a bailiff. It was a shocking display that only reinforced the judge's decision. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt like I could breathe freely for the first time in months. Maya squeezed my hand, tears in her eyes. "It's really over," she whispered. I pulled her close, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Yeah, it is. We're safe now." But even as I said the words, I knew our ordeal wasn't truly over. The legal battle might be won, but the emotional fallout was far from resolved. In the weeks that followed, Maya and I threw ourselves into rebuilding our relationship. We continued with couples counseling, working through the pain and betrayal of her affair. There were good days where it felt like we were finding our way back to each other. But there were also terrible fights where old hurts resurfaced. Meanwhile, we kept hearing disturbing reports about Phoebe. She'd apparently had a complete breakdown after the court hearing, ending up in a psychiatric hold for a few days. After her release, she started spreading vicious rumors about us online, creating fake social media accounts to harass our friends and family. We documented every violation and reported them to the authorities. Eventually, Phoebe was arrested for violating the restraining order. She ended up serving a short jail sentence, which seemed to finally drive home the seriousness of her actions. The last we heard, she'd moved out of state to live with relatives. Good riddance, as far as I was concerned. As for Maya and me, we continued to work on our marriage for several months, but despite our best efforts, the trust between us had been irreparably broken. About 6 months after the court hearing, Maya came to me with tears in her eyes. "I think we need to face the facts," she said softly. "This isn't working. We're both miserable." As much as it killed me to admit it, I knew she was right. We'd been holding on to the memory of what our marriage used to be, not the painful reality of what it had become. We filed for divorce soon after. It was amicable. As these things go, we'd already been through so much pain that the actual separation felt almost anticlimactic. The months that followed were some of the darkest of my life. I threw myself into work, avoiding friends and family who wanted to know what had happened. I was embarrassed, angry, heartbroken. There were nights I lay awake wondering how things had gone so wrong, if there was anything I could have done differently. But slowly, painfully, I started to heal. I went to therapy to work through my trust issues. I reconnected with old friends, started exercising again, and I picked up new hobbies. Gradually, I felt like I was becoming myself again, or maybe a new version of myself, tempered by hardship, but ultimately stronger. It's been 2 years since the divorce was finalized. Maya and I are on cordial terms right now, able to grab an occasional coffee and chat without animosity. She's dating someone new, and I'm genuinely happy for her. I'm single, but open to the possibility of love again someday. Looking back, I can see now that our marriage had cracks even before Phoebe showed up. Her manipulation simply exploited weakness that were already there. In a twisted way, I'm almost grateful. Better to have things fall apart when they did than waste years in a relationship built on shaky ground. I won't say I'm glad this happened. The pain and betrayal still sting, even now. But I've made my peace with it. I'm stronger now. I'm wiser, more aware of my own worth. I know what I want in a partner and what I'm willing to accept. Most importantly, I've learned that no one else has the power to turn your spouse against you. A solid relationship built on genuine love and trust can weather any storm. Phoebe may have been the catalyst, but the choice to betray our marriage was ultimately Maya's. If you're reading this and going through something similar, know that there is life on the other side of betrayal. It's not easy and it's not quick, but you will survive and you will heal. And someday, you'll look back and realize that losing someone who didn't truly value you was actually a gift in a disguise. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future. I don't know what it holds, but I'm facing it with hope, strength, and the knowledge that I am worthy of real, honest love. And that's worth more than any marriage built on lies. Here are my thoughts about the story. When I first started reading the story for the channel, I thought it was going to be your typical "my wife cheated on me" sob story. But man, was I wrong. This Justin dude, he got nerves of steel, I swear. First off, can we talk about Phoebe for a hot second? This chick is like a walking, talking red flags factory. The moment Justin described her, I was like, bro, run for the hills, you know? Those people who just give you the creeps from the get-go. Yeah, that's Phoebe all over. I mean, who shows up and immediately starts trying to drive a wedge between a married couple? The homewrecker alarm was pressed the moment Maya started getting distant. And Maya, Oh, Maya, I gotta say, I was pretty disappointed in her. Like, I get it, reconnecting with an old friend can be exciting, but girl, you're married. The way she started blowing off Justin and getting all defensive, not cool. It's like she forgot she had a whole husband at home. But let's talk about our man, Justin. This dude's patience is something else. If it were me, I probably would have lost my shit way earlier. The way he tried to communicate, plan date nights, and even suggest couples counseling, that's a good man right there. He really fought for his marriage, and you gotta respect that. Now, when he found those texts, I felt that in my soul. Finding out your wife is cheating is bad enough, but with her female best friend? Usually it's the guy's best friend you worry about, not her female friends. The poor man's trust issues probably skyrocketed after that. I can't even imagine how confusing and hurtful that must have been. But here's where Justin really impressed me. Instead of just throwing in the towel, he decided to fight. And not just for his marriage, but against Phoebe's general Phoebiness too. Getting a lawyer involved, hiring a PI, going to court, great effort in his part. I just wasn't convinced that Maya was worth all that effort. After the court stuff is where things really hit. Justin and Maya trying to work things out, going to counseling, all while dealing with Phoebe's continued harassment, that's some heavy stuff. And the fact that they ultimately decided to divorce, man, that was tough to read, but also kind of refreshing. Sometimes no matter how hard you try, things just don't work out, and that's okay. I really respect how Justin handled the aftermath. Going to therapy, working on himself, staying cordial with Maya, that's real growth right there. It would have been so easy to become bitter and angry, but our boy Justin chose to become better instead. You know what really stuck with me though? That line about how no one else has the power to turn your spouse against you. It's easy to blame the other person, the home wrecker. But at the end of the day, it's your partner who makes the choice to cheat. That's a hard pill to swallow, but an important one. When your partner cheats on you, you can't just blame it on the third party involved. Sometimes they're the bamboozled ones. The ones your own partner didn't care to enlighten about their relationship status. Cheating is a two-way street.
And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this.
My wife's family ruined our marriage with constant interference. When I first met Helen, I thought I hit the jackpot. She was beautiful, kind, and we shared so many common interests. Within a year of dating, we were engaged and planning our wedding. I was on cloud 9, excited to start our life together. I met Helen during our sophomore year of college. We were both taking an introductory psychology class, and I was immediately drawn to her infectious laugh and kind eyes. After weeks of stealing glances at each other across the lecture hall, I finally worked up the courage to talk to her after class and ask her on a date. That one coffee date turned into dinner, which turned into long walks around campus, which turned into late night conversations about our hopes and dreams. Before we knew it, we were inseparable. Helen was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. She was intelligent, compassionate, and had a wicked sense of humor. We shared a love of old movies, spicy food, and spontaneous road trips. But more than that, we just clicked on a deeper level. It felt like we'd known each other for lifetimes. We dated throughout college, supporting each other through the stress of exams, internships, and figuring out our future paths. After graduation, we decided to move in together while Helen started law school and I began my career in marketing. Those early years of adult life were challenging but wonderful. We were broke most of the time, living off ramen noodles and dreams. But we had each other, and that made everything feel possible. I proposed to Helen on our 4th anniversary, on the same hill where we'd had that conversation under the stars years before. She burst into happy tears, nodding yes before I could even finish asking the question. Little did I know that saying I do to Helen also meant saying I do to her extremely overbearing family. Looking back, there were warning signs I chose to ignore, too blinded by love to see the red flags waving in my face. Helen was exceptionally close with her parents and her younger sister. At first, I found it endearing how tight-knit they were. They had weekly family dinners, called each other multiple times a day, and seemed to consult one another on every little decision. It's so nice that you're all so close, I remember telling Helen early in our relationship. My family was never like that. Helen beamed. We're a package deal. When you marry me, you marry all of us. I laughed it off at the time, not realizing how prophetic those words would turn out to be. The first inkling I got of trouble was during our wedding planning. Helen and I had agreed on a small, intimate ceremony with just our closest family and friends. When we broke the news to her parents, you'd have thought we'd suggest eloping in Vegas. But sweetie, what about all our family friends? Her mother fretted. And the neighbors, and your dad's golf buddies. We can't possibly leave them out. Mom, we want to keep things small, Helen explained. We don't have the budget for a huge wedding. Her father waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about money, princess. We'll cover whatever the cost is to do this right. I tried to interject. That's very generous, but Helen and I want to pay for the wedding ourselves. We've already made our guest list, and we want a smaller, more intimate wedding. Nonsense, he interrupted. No daughter of mine is having some rinky-dink backyard wedding. We're doing this at the country club, and that's final. I looked at Helen, expecting her to back me up, but to my dismay, she was already nodding along. You're right, Dad. The country club would be perfect. And just like that, our small 50-person wedding ballooned into an elaborate 300-guest affair that felt more like her parents' social event than our special day. I swallowed my frustration, telling myself it was just one day and not worth starting drama over. If only I'd known it was just the beginning. After the wedding, Helen and I moved into our first home together, a modest starter house we'd saved up to buy. We were thrilled to finally have our own space as newlyweds, but apparently Helen's family didn't get it. Her mother showed up unannounced on our very first morning in the new house, arms laden with groceries. I figured you two lovebirds would be too busy to shop, so I picked up some essentials, she trilled, barging past me into the kitchen. I gritted my teeth, forcing a smile. That's stufful, but we already went shopping yesterday. She only tisked as she started unloading bags. Oh, honey, not nearly enough food here for growing young people. And this off-brand cereal? Oh no, I got you the good stuff. Before I could object, Helen came downstairs. Mom, what a nice surprise. For the next hour, I stood by helplessly as Helen's mother rearranged our kitchen, criticizing our organizational choices and kitchenware. Helen just smiled and thanked her mom profusely. When her mom finally left, I turned to Helen in exasperation. Don't you think that was a bit much? We're perfectly capable of stocking our own kitchen. Helen looked confused. What do you mean? Mom was just trying to help. I sighed, deciding to let it go, but similar incidents kept happening. Her mother stopping by unannounced to tidy up, her father showing up on weekends to help with yard work whether we wanted it or not. They seemed to view our house as an extension of their own, coming and going as they pleased. I tried setting some gentle boundaries, suggesting they call before coming over, but Helen pushed back. They're family. They shouldn't need an invitation, she insisted. Why are you being so uptight about this? So I bit my tongue and tried to get used to the constant intrusions, but it was wearing on me, feeling like I never truly had privacy in my own home. Things got even worse when Helen and I started trying for a baby. Suddenly, her family's interference reached a whole new level. Every time we saw them, we were bombarded with unsolicited advice and intrusive questions. Are you taking your prenatal vitamins? Her mother would demand. Let me see your belly. You look bloated. Could be a good sign. You need to eat more red meat for virility, her father would lecture me. And no hot tubs or tight underwear. Kills the sperm count. Even Helen's sister got in on the action. You should be doing it every other day for optimal chances. I read that in a magazine. I was mortified having such personal matters discussed so openly. But Helen seemed to take it all in stride, eagerly lapping up every tidbit of advice. When we finally did get pregnant, I naively thought things might improve. Surely now that we were expecting, her family would back off and give us some space to enjoy the special time. How I was wrong. If anything, the pregnancy ramped up their interference to new heights. My mother-in-law insisted on coming to every single doctor's appointment, elbowing me aside to ask questions. Her husband started showing up at our house daily to work on the nursery, ignoring my protest that I wanted to do it myself. Nonsense. You don't know the first thing about proper insulation or paint fumes, he scoffed. Can't have my grandbaby breathing in toxins. I felt like I was being edged out of my own life, my role as husband and father to be usurped by Helen's family. When I tried to talk to her about it, she accused me of being selfish. They're just excited and want to be involved, she snapped. Why can't you be more appreciative of all they do for us? The day Helen went into labor was both wonderful and terrible. Wonderful because our beautiful daughter, Rihanna, came into the world. Terrible because I barely got a moment alone with my wife and new baby. Helen's entire family camped out in the delivery room, talking over me and the doctors. Her father even tried to cut the umbilical cord himself until a nurse firmly put her foot down. In the days after Raina's birth, our house was in constant state of chaos. Her mother practically moved in, taking over care of the baby and criticizing my every move. No, you're holding her all wrong, she scolded, snatching Raina from my arms. Let me show you the proper way. I felt like a guest in my own home, an outsider looking in on my own family. Helen was too exhausted to notice, happily letting her mom take charge. As Raina grew, so did my resentment. Every milestone and decision was co-opted by Helen's family. They insisted on being present for Raina's first bath, first solid food, first steps. They all had strong opinions on everything, from which pediatrician we should use to what preschool Raina should attend. I tried to put my foot down about some things, like when my mother-in-law wanted to pierce Raina's ear at 6 months old. Absolutely not, I said firmly. She's too young. We can wait until she's old enough to decide for herself. She looked shocked that I dare disagree. All the girls in our family get their ears pierced as babies. It's tradition. To my dismay, Helen sided with her mother. He's right, honey. It would be so cute. And she wouldn't even remember the pain. I stood my ground, leading to days of cold shoulders and guilt trips from Helen and her mom. It was exhausting, constantly battling to have a say in my own child's life. As Raina got older, the interference extended to our parenting choices. If we tried to discipline Raina for misbehaving, her grandparents would swoop in to undermine us. Oh, don't be so hard on her, she would coo, scooping Raina up and plowing her with treats. Grandma's little angel can do no wrong. My father-in-law was even worse, openly countermanding our rules in front of Raina. I'll let her stay up past bedtime just this once, he'd say with a wink. What dad and mom don't know won't hurt him. I grew increasingly frustrated, feeling like Helen and I had no authority in our own home. When I tried to discuss it with Helen, she accused me of overreacting. They're just doting grandparents, she'd say dismissively. You should be grateful Raina has so much love in her life. But it wasn't just about Raina. Helen's family inserted themselves into every aspect of our marriage. They had opinions on our finances, our careers, even our sex life. Nothing was off limits. You two should be trying for another baby, her sister announced over dinner one night. Raina needs a sibling close in age. I nearly choked on my food. That's a private decision between Helen and me, I said firmly. But Helen just laughed. Oh, we've been thinking about it. Maybe we'll start trying soon. I was floored. This was the first I'd heard about it. More and more, I felt like Helen and her family were a unit, and I was on the outside looking in. The final straw came when Raina was about to start kindergarten. Helen and I had researched schools extensively and agreed on sending her to a great public school in our district. But a week before school was set to start, Helen dropped a bombshell on me. So I've been talking to mom and dad, and we think it would be better to send Raina to that private school downtown instead, she announced casually for breakfast. I looked at her frustrated. What? But we already enrolled her at school. We agreed that this was the best choice. Helen shrugged. I know, but it's where I went as a kid. The education is top-notch, and Raina would have a better chance of getting into a good college down the line. It's also insanely expensive, I pointed out. We can't afford private tuition. Oh, mom and dad say they'd pay for it, Helen said breezily. Isn't that generous of them? I felt my blood pressure rising. That's not the point. We made this decision together as Raina's parents. You can't just go behind my back and change everything because your parents said so. Helen's eyes flashed angrily. I'm not going behind your back. I'm doing what's best for our daughter. Why are you always so negative about my family's help? The argument escalated quickly, years of pent-up resentment pouring out. I railed against how her family constantly overstepped and how Helen always took their side. Helen accused me of being ungrateful and trying to cut Raina off from her grandparents. If you can't appreciate how lucky we are to have their support, maybe you need to rethink your priorities, she spat. Right now, it feels like you're married to your parents instead of me." Helen stormed out, slamming the door behind her. She didn't come home that night, or the next. When she finally returned, it was with her parents in tow, looking grim. "Helen tells us you two have been having some difficulties," her mother said delicately. "This is between Helen and me. We don't need you involved." Her father's face darkened. "Now see here, young man. Helen is our daughter, and Raina is our granddaughter. Their well-being is very much our business." What followed was an hours-long intervention of sorts, with Helen and her parents ganging up on me. They picked apart every complaint and concern that I've ever raised, twisting my words to make me sound controlling and unreasonable. By the end, I felt beaten down and emotionally exhausted. Helen delivered the final blow. "I think we need some time apart," she said coldly. "Raina and I are going to stay with my parents for a while until you get your act together." I was stunned. "You're leaving? Just like that?" Helen nodded. "It's clear you have some issues to work through. When you're ready to apologize and accept my family's place in our lives, we can discuss reconciliation." And just like that, my wife and daughter were gone, whisked away to her parents' house. I was left alone in our suddenly empty home, shell-shocked and heartbroken. The next few months were a blur of pain and confusion. Helen allowed me to see Raina on weekends, but always under her family's supervision. They watched me like hawks, noting every interaction and criticizing my parenting at every turn. I tried to talk to Helen alone several times to work things out between us, but she refused to meet without her parents present. It felt like negotiating with a hostile foreign power rather than trying to save my marriage. "We're a package deal," Helen reminded me icily. "If you want me and Raina back, you need to accept my whole family." I went to individual counseling, desperate to understand where things had gone so wrong. My therapist helped me see that while I wasn't blameless, Helen and her family's behavior was deeply unhealthy. "What you're describing is enmeshment," she explained. "Helen never fully separated from her family of origin. They have no sense of boundaries, which makes it impossible for you to have a healthy marriage." Armed with this new understanding, I tried one last time to reason with Helen. I laid out my concerns calmly, explaining how our family's constant interference had eroded our bond as a couple. "I love you, Raina, more than anything," I said earnestly, "but we need to be a team, to put our nuclear family first. Your parents and sister can still be involved, but there have to be some boundaries." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the old Helen, the woman I'd fallen in love with, but then her eyes hardened. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she said stiffly, "but I'm not willing to choose between you and my family. If you can't accept them, then I guess this marriage is over." The divorce proceedings were ugly, with Helen's family using their considerable financial resources to paint me as an unfit parent. In the end, I was granted only limited visitation with Raina. It's been 2 years since the split, and the pain is still raw. I miss my daughter desperately, aching for all the moments I'm missing in her life. Helen has all but cut me out, relaying information about Raina through emails or her family members. I tried to move on, throwing myself into work and slowly rebuilding my life, but the betrayal and loss still haunt me. I can't help but wonder how things might have been different if I'd recognized the red flags earlier, if I'd been firmer in setting boundaries from the start. Some days the anger threatens to consume me. At Helen for choosing her family over our marriage, at her parents for their relentless interference, at myself for not fighting harder. That I'm trying to channel those feelings into being the best dad I can be during my limited time with Raina. I know someday she'll be old enough to understand what happened, to form her own opinions about the situation. I can only hope that by then, she'll see how hard I fought to be part of her life, boundaries and all. For now, I'm focusing on healing and growing as a person. I'm learning to enforce healthy boundaries in all my relationships, and I'm holding on to hope that someday I'll find a true partnership, one where family enhances our bond rather than coming between us. If there's one lesson I've learned from this painful ordeal, it's this: love isn't always enough. A strong marriage requires mutual support, clear boundaries, and two people committed to putting their relationship first. Without those elements, even the deepest love can crumble under outside pressures. To anyone in a similar situation, my advice is this: trust your instincts. If something feels off in your relationship, speak up early and often. Set clear boundaries and stick to them, even when it's uncomfortable. And remember that a healthy marriage should bring out the best in both partners, not leave one person feeling constantly undermined and alone. My story doesn't have a happy ending, at least not yet. But I have to believe that by sharing it, maybe I can help someone else avoid the heartache that I've endured. After all, that's the only way to find meaning in the pain, by using it to help others and to build a better future, one healthy relationship at a time. Here are my thoughts about the story. This poor dude got blindsided. Like, he thought he was marrying the love of his life, but surprise, he actually signed up for a package deal with the in-laws from hell. Talk about a bait and switch, am I right? Now, I'm all for close families. Heck, I'm all for grown children calling their parents every Sunday and maintaining a great relationship. But there's close, and then there's whatever Helen's family had going on. These people were so far up in their business, they probably knew what brand of toilet paper the couple used. The part that really got me was when Helen's mom showed up on their first morning in the new house. Like, come on, lady. Let the newlyweds have their honeymoon phase without critiquing their cereal choices. It's like she was auditioning for the role of world's most overbearing mother-in-law and gunning for an Oscar. And don't even get me started on the wedding fiasco. The way Helen's parents just steamrolled over their plans made my blood boil. It's supposed to be the couple's special day, not a networking event for dad's golf buddies. Then again, I don't think they steamrolled over the couple's plans. They steamrolled over our poor guy's plans. And that's the thing that really bugs me. Helen. Oh, Helen. Helen. I wanted to reach through my screen and shake some sense into her. How could she not see what was happening? It's like she had blinders on when it came to her family. Either that or she simply didn't care about our guy nearly as much as she should have. I mean, hell, they even had a kid together. Helen, where's your backbone? I get it. Family loyalty is important. But at some point, you got to cut the umbilical cord, you know? When you get married, your spouse becomes your primary family. It's like marriage 101. But Helen seemed to have skipped that class entirely. The pregnancy and baby stuff, that was next level insanity. I was half expecting Helen's mom to try and breastfeed the baby herself. And her guy feeling like a guest in his own home. That's not how it's supposed to be, folks. Becoming a parent should bring a couple closer together, not drive a wedge between them. Now, I'm not saying he was perfect. He probably could have put his foot down earlier, set some boundaries before things got so out of hand. But hindsight is 20/20, right? And when you're in the thick of it, trying to keep the peace, it's not always easy to see how bad things have gotten. The school decision, though, that was the last straw, and I don't blame him one bit for losing it. Can you imagine your spouse making a huge decision about your kid's future without even consulting you, and then having the nerve to act like you're the unreasonable one? Not cool. What really breaks my heart is how it all ended. Helen choosing her parents over her marriage, taking Raina away. That's some cold-blooded stuff right there. And the way her family used their money to limit his access to his own daughter, that's not just crossing the line. That's obliterating it. It's so important to establish boundaries early on, to make sure you and your partner are on the same page about family involvement. And for all you married folks out there, remember, your spouse should come first. Your parents had their time to raise their family. Now it's your turn. They can be involved, sure, but there's a big difference between being supportive and being suffocating. I really hope he finds happiness again. He seems like a stand-up guy who got dealt a really crappy hand. And I hope little Raina grows up to understand what really happened. Kids are smart. I bet she'll figure it out eventually. As for Helen and her family, well, I'll try to be charitable here, but it's tough. I just hope they realize someday how their actions affected our guy and Raina. Maybe they'll learn, grow, and do better in the future, but I'm not holding my breath.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.